Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Badlands Crew. So if you're not across it, I do overviews on this channel. I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind about a game in that time. I generally agree. I think it's a good rule. 20 hours in, you're probably not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So short and punchy. Broad strokes info, keep it around 10 minutes and you can make up your mind on your own. So Badlands Crew is, well, part of a trilogy at this point, I suppose. The latest entry from Runnerduck, who did Space Crew and Bomber Crew before that. So you're sensing a theme. You know, these are all sequels after a fashion in that you crew a vehicle. In Bomber Crew, it's like a B-52 bomber or a flying fortress or whatever. It depends. It was DLC. You know, you had British, American, whatever. And Space Crew was more of a Starship Enterprise type theme. And this is circa Mad Max 2 come Fury Road vehicular convoy type stuff. I think the Americans call Mad Max 2 Road Warrior for some stupid reason. But anyway, whatever. Arguably the best Mad Max of all. But this absolutely captures the dream that, you know, everyone from my age group probably has, but maybe doesn't even necessarily realize. But that road train, the big rig truck going through the post-apocalypse that was laid out in Mad Max 2 originally, that is something I grew up on. And if you told me that there'd be a game coming out that essentially simulates that, where you run your own rig with gunners and armor and building it out and cruising around, oh my god, what an absolute dream to come true that is for young Scarlet. So it's cool to see this realized now. It also gives me pangs to the Mad Max game, which if you've missed that, god, I'm sure I'll cover that on the other channel at some point when it goes on sale, but yeah, that's an absolute banger too. But just put me in the post-apocalypse anytime and I want to play Mad Max immediately. But this is as Mad Max as you're going to get anyway, at least from the truck perspective. And it's excellent. It's really good. If you don't like the Runnerduck games, the Crew games, this is not necessarily going to convince you, right? It's not radically different enough other than thematic. And with that comes some changes we'll talk about. But like I said, if you really didn't like Bomber Crew and Space Crew, unless you're an absolute nut for Mad Max, I doubt this will change your mind. However, if you enjoyed those previously and you were looking to see if they would stick the landing, in my opinion, they have. It is up to snuff and on form. But anyway, look, let's assume you don't know anything about them and this is the first you've heard about it. We'll break it down. This game, while it has this cutesy art style and the dinky soundtrack is so good. It's all like jug band fiddles and washerboards and that, and it works, man, in its own way. Instead of, you know, this grungy, miserable post-apocalyptica, it's kind of peppy. But do not be tricked by these visuals. These games get quite tricky and brutal at times. And even in the few hours I've spent with this, I had a pretty good run, but right at the end of my time, I was fighting like a fortress, like a boss, and they kept sending out reinforcements. And it was awesome seeing the cool vehicles, because they'd only really sent little girly cars at me, little matchbox baby cars, but then they're sending these big armored monstrosities, and too many, and my crew were going down and my engine block was blowing up and had to repair my compressor. Had a dude hanging off the bonnet trying to repair something while someone's trying to revive the driver, and like it went from 0 to 100, which is want to do in these games. And it's kind of part of the thrill, is the risk reward, right? Ever since Bomber Crew, you have your crew, you have your well-organized little system, and it will get rocked when you accidentally bite off more than you can chew. Now, mind you, I didn't have to go straight for this fortress. It was, you know, fairly telegraphed as a main mission thing, but up until then, you can just keep doing side quests. From what I can tell, it just keeps generating extra things to do in the Badlands. So, you know, if you're willing to sort of grind up and get your crew up and your rig built out a bit, I think major upgrades are gated by the main story. But, you know, you could probably have come into my extreme encounter a little bit more prepared, other than the pincushion that I'm running. So ultimately, you have a crew, as you could probably guess. You start with defaults. They can die, they can get knocked down by enemy fire, and you can replace them, you recruit them. You have a sort of XCOM base in between thing in a way. You don't really build the base out, though you do get extra outposts. So I captured that outpost, and you have to do missions around them to keep them happy, and they'll send supplies to your main outpost, and they can potentially fall back under enemy control if you don't police them. Apparently, I've only really just stumbled into that now. But yeah, ultimately you've got your crew. You start with 5. You kind of spec them down different RPG trees as they level up. But yes, there is a permadeath component to it, so you got to watch out for that. I'm sure you could probably save scum and all that if you're a bit of a wimp, but playing the game as intended, you can lose dudes and it can take a bit of a chunk out of your stride. At the moment, I've basically got one dude driving the rig. I've got like a spotter command position guy and then 3 gunners, but that's probably going to change. You know, in a lot of the footage, there's, instruments. You can get guys on drums and that sort of stuff. Very much channeling Fury Road, and I'm absolutely there for it. I've built my little trailer up that they all sit on a little bit, put some planks and defenses, but nothing super exceptional. Like, the game has a grind to it, and it's meeting out upgrades slowly, let's say, or at least different new upgrades. So my truck's getting there, but they've already, they've got sort of like bridge parts, ladders, so it looks like you can probably go multi-layer, which is exciting, and it's made it pretty explicit that having one tray on your truck is not the limit, so you're going to have multiple trailers running like a B-double situation. So I'm actually really pumped to see where it goes, but again, this is still early days. So essentially, you skill your dudes up, you put them in certain seats, and generally speaking, they'll magnet to them, right? Like, for example, I put a rejuvenator, it's like a healing platform on my tray, and you can tell a dude to go to that healing thing, but then all you gotta do is like press spacebar on him, and it will tell him to disengage and go back to his original station. And so there will be call for them to step off station, as in, well, the basic guns at the beginning require an air compressor to run. They've got infinite ammo, but they still draw from the sort of compressor. Think of it like a power level in this case. And I've had the compressor go down in a fight, so all the guns stop working, which means, well, someone's got to get off a gun and basically repair the compressor. So you can just tell the dude to do that and then tell him to go back to his gun. So there is micro, and it is fiddly enough, but it's not overwhelming. It's more that the situation will become overwhelming, where you've got 2 dudes down that need reviving, and if you don't revive them in time, they're dead. They're perma-dead. So like, do I revive this guy? Do I fix this engine? Do I fix this compressor? All the while trying to also fight the battle. And that's one of the more interesting things, is the driving, the maneuverability, the locomotion through the game is probably the most different, in that you have a lot of free roam. You'll do a mission, you'll run out from your base and do a mission, and you can use your command seat as like a spotter to find secondary missions. You can also bring the map up, but ultimately the way that it works is you choose your gear to go in, sort of low, high, that sort of thing. You can go into nitro, but at that point that exhausts, and it also burns your engine out, like it overheats it and damages it. But there are other cool little open world features, like there are these freeway raised platforms, and there's a bit of a puzzle to them. Generally, you got to go around the other end of them to blow up the barricades to clear them. But if you nitro over these raised sort of asphalt roads, your nitro is infinite during it. So it actually works as like a slip lane, if you think of it in terms of a space game getting from long distant point A to B. It functionally works like that. So that's cool. The idea of a bit of a backtracking, closing the gap over the large world scenario. But that aside, you put your gear in, you can fast forward the game or slow-mo it. You can't explicitly pause it, I don't think, other than pulling up an ability, but the slow-mo is functional enough. It works just fine. And yeah, for long overland missions, speeding up with tab, I think it is pretty handy too. But you generally set your vehicle on a vector, and you use Q and E to change that vector, because you still need a lot of camera control. WASD is dedicated to camera movement. It does make sense. It's more that you're managing the truck on the move as opposed to driving it. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, you can Q and E and you set the vector, and your driver will do the best he can do to avoid shit and stick to it. You're going to crash into things, it's going to fight you and be a bit of a pain occasionally, but such is the case with these sort of quality of life designs. But the idea is, when you hit combat, you can even go into a toggle mode where you could say, well, just ram this vehicle, right? And he will use nitro and maneuver, and your driver will do everything he can to ram that vehicle as best he can. Or you can go, here's a circular pattern about this center point, just circle it and fight in a circle. That's very handy as well. So you do have this open world freedom, but it relies heavily on a pseudo automation kind of set and forget system so as to be able to manage all the other moving parts of your basically base on wheels. I think it works really well. It's very clever. It's unusual. People that don't like change are going to have a whinge about it, but you know, you can't help those people anyway. But as far as like an innovative, unusual design, it's cool, and it's cool to see it on the back of the other games, because it sort of has a bit of column A, column B. The main reason in Bomber Crew, geez, it's been a while, it really tests me now, but the main challenge with maneuvering in that was about navving. You'd have like a radio operator and he'd call out nav waypoints and you'd essentially steer onto those waypoints. Again, another novel interpretation of locomotion over a space, but set in a time period where, you know, if you get your nav fixes off wrong, you're going to end up over flak in the wrong part of Europe. And I think it was a really clever, unusual system. And again, the Space Crew one changed up again, and it was a bit more of a point-to-point waypointing system, and then you lean into maneuvering abilities. Oh, and while I'm on that, all you little dudes, as they level up, they'll unlock passives, they'll unlock abilities. You can equip them with all sorts of, you know, post-apocalyptic nonsense, like a rubber tire with suspenders, you know, because why not? Egg crate gauntlets or armbands, I can't quite remember. Oh my, it's clever. It's very clever. It's very in-universe. But you know, you can give your gunners the extra damage, or they do like a cinematic burst of attack, to the point where you can call in like reinforcements to come and help you, and have little other AI cars half the time hindering you more by crashing into you and friendly firing. But it's a good bit of chaos and it's fun. You can hear me giggling about it because I'm enjoying it. I think it's really good. And like I said, my one main concern was I was worried that it wasn't really ramping. It was a bit cruisy difficulty wise, and then I got proper skill checked when I went up against that outpost, and I barely trickled over the line. My vehicle was smashed and fucked, and dudes were bleeding to death. But when I beat the boss, because I was versing a boss car, it unlocked the outpost and let me in, and oh my god, so my crew's mangled, but we made it. So yeah, beware. Difficulty spikes is probably a good way to put it. But otherwise, yeah, this is great. This is a great game in a sequence of great games. And, you know, maybe you don't want to pick this up full price straight off the bat. I can understand that. I mean, it is on a buying discount. It's not very expensive, but you just as easily wishlist all three of them and pick up the old ones and cut your teeth on them. I'm sure they hold up just fine. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.